And the ride starts here. This is going to be fun. I've always thought this should be a ride ever since day number one when I saw it. And Disney's going to do it, finally. So that's today's episode. I want to talk about Disney's Monsters Incorporated themed ride. So let's get into it.
Now get ready. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ryan Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? If this is your first time here, make sure you like and subscribe. Do all that stuff downstairs. It does help me out and I do appreciate it. Alright, so on today's video, we're going to be talking about Disney's Monsters Incorporated ride. This is something that came out on the D23 Expo this year, and they didn't really release much information about it. They didn't have a final name for it. They just called it a Monsters Incorporated themed ride, and they gave us one little concept art drawing, which we can see here. This is the concept art drawing for it. It looks really cool. Just visually, nothing's really been named, but we kind of know some stuff in the past. Visually, these look like Vekoma suspended family coaster trains, and that kind of makes sense with they typically do a lot of work with Vekoma, so wholeheartedly expecting this to be a Vekoma ride that is 100% custom built for Disney, of course. And this is what I wanted to talk to you today about. So let's get into this. And where do we start with this? Okay. The movie itself. It's a great movie. I loved it. Hold on, let me do this. Okay, from that scene in the beginning, we're going to pick up there and watch where they progress from here. And this is actually going to be the progression of the ride. Let me restart it. All right, let's figure out how to navigate this video. It's going to be tough. There's a lot of things during the door scene that I want to show. At the same time, I honestly don't want to get copyrighted by YouTube, so I got to I have to be careful how I do this. Let's start with the start of the ride, which they already said in the D23. They said, you know, the part where the doors lift up and it grabs the door, like that's going to be part of the ride. So it's like, cool. So let's look at what that would look like. Okay, so the door is going to go up. It would attach to the rails at the top, and then it would start heading forward. Okay, well, and then it goes down this hallway and makes a little jaunt to the left. Is that important? I don't know. Let's look at the model, though. There's a model that came out in the D23 Expo, and although it is just a reference model, you know, it's not the exact thing, and Disney says it's just a concept. I don't know. Once Disney does stuff in this type of form, it's typically like, yeah, this is pretty much the way we want to go. Let's look at that real quick. Perfect. Made the pointer bigger for you guys. I know that helps out. All right, so this is a model that they built for the D23 Expo. There's tons and tons of pictures out there of this model, which is really cool. None of the pictures, for some reason, which I wanted. I guess I'm the only nerd floating around that wants I wanted like a clean, high up shot down on the model so I could see the full layout as best I can. But one thing you'll see on this model, I'll use a bunch of different pictures, is that with the wireframe layout, it's kind of hard to really see what's going on inside there. So I'll get over to the dispatch at the end of the video because I think that is a super cool opportunity that they have. But we'll talk about some general stuff first. So this is the wire layout of the ride. It's a general brief concept of, hey, this is kind of the rough idea of how we want the ride building to look or the show building to look. And we kind of think that this layout would be interesting. And so they have the rough idea, and then they would give it to a manufacturer like Vekoma. Again, we don't know that Vekoma is the one that's going to build it, but we do know that when Disney needs something custom built for a ride, they typically go to Vekoma. They have a good long-standing history together. So that's pretty cool. So we've gone up. We'll just say we're up at the top here, and this is the loading station over here. Here's kind of a little bit of a different angle, but here's the loading station right here. And then what you'll see out here is that right in this area, they're using, because the tube represents, I would say represents the backbone plus the rails. And then they put 2 tubes up there with a switch track in between. So we already know from high capacity rides like Tron and stuff like that, that they have no problem putting quick acting switch tracks in there. This is going to be the same exact thing that Vekoma's been using, but it's going to be on the invert side. So it might be laid out a little bit differently or look different, but it's pretty much going to be the same thing. So you have 2 sets of rails up here, 2 sets of tracks up here that go through a switch track right there, and then they start dispatching out from there. Now from the station area, which is right here in this picture, they're going to come out here to another switch track area. Well, if you look at this model carefully, you can see there's these clear partitions right here, and that's basically what that is that is a wall. They've said, well, this is going to be the wall. Well, they don't want to put a wall up in the model because that's going to look dumb if they do that. So they made it clear. But you're going to go through the wall, and then it's going to Y together in the background. Now, this is a pretty big area right here. What's this allow for? This is, I could almost bet you, this is the length of a train, roughly, in this area. So we're going to start, you know, we could start counting blocks here if you want to. So once you dispatch through here, you come into here, and this is, I don't know, I'm going to have to keep tally. So I'm going to say this is 1 block right here. So this train can go forward from 1 block. And then it's going to go out past the switch track. And then what's it doing? It's going to make a slight left-hand bend. It's like, kind of like the movie. I think they're really going to parody the movie just side by side and just kind of duplicate it as best they can. Because I know when I watched the movie, that was something like, as soon as I saw that part in the movie, hold on. This part right here. I'm going to stop this right here. Look right up here. See, they've got the doors hanging on this track right here, which is what they're trying to do, which is great. But I have a feeling this hallway that's up there is going to be similarly shaped, at least to go through, to this hallway right here. When I first saw this movie, I looked at that track up there and I'm like, hey, that kind of looks like an inverted track, like a B&M track or something. So we go through here. They're traveling down this deep, dark hallway. Okay, we already know from when they did the Monsters, Inc. ride, it helped to have, this is the one in California Adventure, they used the Superstars limo ride, so they used this long tunnel avenue to help tell you and develop some of the story. They could be doing the same thing here. What else could they be doing in this tunnel? This is also block capacity. They could be just simply breaking it up between brakes and drive motors and moving the train forward. All right, what's the next thing that's going to happen? We're going to ride along and come out into the show building. And then that's when you finally see, of all time, you finally see just how massive the building is. Now, let's take a look at this video here. See if I can move the playhead out of the way. It's like we have these big arch frame supports inside of here that are simply holding the track on both sides. We've got multiple sets of tracks on the left and the right side, and then you have all the doors stored off to the side of that. I've watched other videos where one of the former Imagineers was on there talking about the idea, and he said there's going to be lots of mirrors in this building, which makes sense because mirrors, you could double the size of stuff. You can put mirrors on the floor and make it look super deep. You could put mirrors on the side of the wall and make it look like it goes really far past where it actually does. So if we look at the model, we can see the same thing. They've got those big archways inside there that are meant to support everything, but they're kind of the iconic look. So those are going to be huge inside the show building. Also, you'll see in the middle that the track goes in and out of those archways. So they are functional. They're going to have steel supports on the inside that are there. Once, you know, Disney does both things. So one set of steel supports will support the archway itself. It is simply just a building, it's a structure. The other set of supports will hold the ride track. Now, you can have Vekoma do both of them, so it's just one piece. So it's just like, okay, Vekoma built the entire lattice up there, and they built it to hold the structure on both sides. I don't know if Disney would pay for that or if they would just say, no, we'll build the other one. You guys build your normal arch supports to hold the track, and we'll figure out the rest of it. They align with the knickknacks. That way the pieces have fallen the same cover, the same aesthetic look to them on the outside. But that's pretty much about it. But if we look back here, after our long dark hallway right here, we're going to make that slight left-hand turn out and come into the show building. Now, an interesting thing about this is that you see right here on the top where you came in after the switch track, it's a pretty hard right-hand or left-hand turn. And then out here, it's a big sweeping left-hand turn. This kind of... so here's my thought to this. In the show, they traveled along those rails until they had a set of booster motors, and then it propelled them fast forward and then down after a couple seconds. It suddenly went through and then took a sharp drop down. And this is where the ride would really start to pick up and you'd really have some fun. So looking at our model, the model comes in right here. Okay, this photo I have, this one's from Blog Mickey. So they took a really nice, man, it's a crystal clear photo. I don't know how they got that. That's awesome. So here's the track right down here. Here's the track where it comes into the building. And you see it kind of goes straight just a little bit and then starts to spiral and curve down along this way. At least I think that does. It's kind of hard to tell with these pictures because this track is so weaved in and out of the building. It's hard to tell if that track comes around this way and continues on, or if that track comes down and does a little S bend over and comes back the other way. That's difficult. But the thing that I'm not seeing is, like the movie, I'm not seeing a drop. I'm not seeing a drop into it, at least not in this area. This spiral down could be the drop down. So what I'm wondering is, I'm wondering if this right here, how you saw that set of, looks like a booster wheels on the track and it suddenly kicks the door forward. I'm wondering if this is going to be not like a launch area. So I'm wondering if they're going to accelerate the train forward. Let's talk about drive systems really quick. I feel like a lot of clientele that watch this video don't watch my other ones, so I'm not going to go too deep into dive stuff but historically, Vekoma uses booster wheels to move stuff around. They used it on pretty much every ride that they've done. Booster wheels are kind of high maintenance, but they work. You don't have to do much else. So I feel like the ride's going to be driven from booster wheels, but in a lot of areas and things like that, I don't think that would work well. I also think it would cause a lot of maintenance work, just constantly replacing booster motors out on the ride, which is kind of a pain in the butt. I know Disney likes to make stuff high uptime, which means that you don't want to contact the train as much as possible. Minimize brakes, minimize drive surfaces. So I think they could go from a booster drive system to a LSM or LIM system to accelerate the trains. And I feel like this is going to be a very small launch right here. Not big, nothing crazy. We're not trying to get the train up and over a top hat, but it might be just enough to push you back in your seat and then go on to the ride. For their clientele going on this ride, it's a 42-inch height requirement. Well, I don't know that for sure, but when you look at the Vekoma series trains and information, everything is, all their stuff is a 1.05 meter height requirement for their riders, and that's 42 inches. So I would expect this to be the same. And now, could you fit a smaller person in those restraints and stuff for these vehicles? If we take a look at the vehicles, it's like, oh yeah, you could fit a smaller person in there, absolutely for sure. But what's the big thing with these vehicles? Why is it on inverted coasters the height requirement goes up when it might be actually more tame than a sit-down coaster next to it? It's because your child is separated from you. You can't do that much. I remember going on Big Thunder Mountain with my kids and stuff. It's like they were sitting right next to me. I could hold them, I can put my arm around them, I can make sure they're secure. Not that I felt that they were going to fall out, but if my kid tried to do something like wiggle out of their restraint mid-ride, I could grab onto them and say, no, that's not what we're going to do on this ride. And that is a thing. There's a mental capacity that has to happen too. So they need a certain age kid to have that mental capacity to say, I am not going to try to worm my way out of this restraint. And the smaller that is, the less that capacity is there, and the more likely they are to injure themselves by hanging over in some weird position and getting G-force pushed onto them. Not that there'd be a lot of G-force on this particular ride. But, okay, so I went booster wheels. The family suspended coasters that Vekoma makes right now use a standard drive fin up on top. Works great because it's the driving surface to push forward. It's the surface that goes up the lift hill. You don't need chain dogs. The wheels act as anti-rollbacks, so you don't need anti-rollbacks externally anyway. And then you could also put them in the track if you wanted to. Put anti-rollbacks in the track. Not really necessary on most of the lift hill rides. But then I say, okay, well, what about LSM? Let's move to linear synchronous motors on this, which is what most rides use these days. So we don't need the dual stators, which is, the pair of stators sitting like that. We don't need dual stators because we're not trying to launch this train up and over a top hat at all. We can use a single stator sticking up, which minimizes the width needed up there. So this could turn into a set of magnets up on top. Fine, that works, but one thing magnets do is they add the weight to the train, and the way this train has the weight shaved off of it, see how it's a nice, very lightweight design. Not sure if that's going to be a great thing. They might have to stiffen the whole train up and make it much heavier than it's supposed to be in order to handle the weight of the magnets, because magnets are very heavy. The other idea, go backwards in technology, but it still works, is you can make this fin a reactive style fin, and you can go to a linear inductive style ride. That's where it's the same thing, but you're going to use more power, more electricity to run this roller coaster because there's going to be a lot more loss through the drive than a synchronous motor would be. Drive systems aside, like number 3 at the bottom of my list is induction, although it's easy to work with that train. Number 2 is synchronous. It would work, but the train's going to weigh a lot, and they might have to really stiffen their design up. Are they doing that already? Is that a thing? Is it not a big deal in their calculations? I don't know, but it might be. But the number 1 thing at the top of my list is that they're probably going to stick with what they know and just make everything booster drives. I have some pluses and minuses on that. So on this, I feel like we're going to accelerate the train in the dark hallway. We're going to go through a little spiel there and say that we're doing something, or maybe we're going to go past one of those new, some of those new A1000 animatronics, and hopefully they work here. And then we're going to accelerate the train just a little bit, maybe up to a little kickback in the seat to 10, 15, maybe 20 miles per hour, and shoot the train out of this into the show building at a much slower speed. See, here it kind of looks like this is the S. So if I got a 20 mile per hour kick out there, and then we went down the track here and did a high bank left-hand turn followed by a high bank right-hand turn, and then every time you go up against one of these walls, these things are going to be filled with doors, top to bottom, just tons of doors, and the storyline can follow along like that. Vekoma and Disney are really good about putting onboard audio onto the train, so I imagine you're going to hear some Sully navigation, some, hey, look, there's something, we got to find something like that, and you're going to keep weaving around these things. So, and the drop isn't much. You could see, like right here, if this is in fact a ride path, because again, it's hard to tell from pictures. The drop isn't much. It just meanders right along these walls, probably to get the guests kind of warmed up to the idea of where they are and what's going on. Gives people time to look around and admire the building that they're in. This building is going to be pretty big. It's going to be probably 1,000 feet long, 300 feet wide, and probably 150 feet high. It's going to be a big show building, but a lot of that's needed to build this illusion on the inside. So they're going to run the train in here. It's going to go around. It's going to do its thing. Honestly, in here, I start getting lost with these tracks. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. You've got all this cool stuff. There are sections in here, although the wire doesn't quite look right. You know, that's where engineering kicks in later to smooth out and to figure out the actual math. But you can easily put breaks along these sections. Like right here, you can make this a straight piece of track that's kind of just down ever so slightly in there, and kind of give yourself a little pause, and that becomes a block. And then it's like, okay, now we've gone from our block here, probably a block here, a block here. I'm going to say a block here. So now we're up to what, 4 blocks? Let me write that down. Up to 4 blocks now. And then run the train along the inside, back and forth. Now, one of the really cool things is that in the video, they come up across this junction right here, where it's like, okay, the doors are going to their final spot. This is where they're going to be stored up against the wall. And if you remember also, because I don't have it in this clip, I don't think, they get Boo, the girl, they get Boo to laugh, and she is able to energize the doors. So here's what I'm thinking. At some point in time in here, something's going to happen, and you're going to get a laugh or maybe even a scare. And then what's going to happen is you're coming along this way right here, along this little rail, and as you see, it makes this hard left-hand turn, and then there's this straight shot right there, and there's these holes in the wall. What are those holes? I'm pretty sure those are going to be energized doors on the wall. Those are going to be the door, and then you're going to get this little hard left-hand corner. It's going to level out. This straight line right here, this is a block. That's 5 blocks now. This is a block I can almost guarantee you, and I almost guarantee you this will also be an acceleration area too. Again, 42-inch ride height, we're not going to go for crazy, insane acceleration. But I do feel like we're going to give the train a good nudge forward and say, go forward. It might just be a static block too. I mean, that could be wrong, but I mean, it'd be really cool if we got a good nudge forward with maybe an energized door right there as the door was about to close. So there was a reason to accelerate forward. You got to make that door. There is, we're chasing something. There goes, what is it, Randall? There goes Randall. Chase him into that door, and you get that little boost forward, go into the door. This is cool. Check this out. All right, this was one of the harder pictures I had to find. I was like, man, where is that? Here it is. So we got this straight line boost through that energized door, which is just, hey, this is what I think, right? I don't know if it's real or not, but this is kind of just how I put it together in my head. Got a straight line boost to energized door, and then you come out here in this area, make this big sweeping U-turn and go right back through. There is a plastic level. You see the tracks below too. There is a plastic thing separating that. So what is this? This is another part to the show building. This is its own independent room right there. So now you have this really cool thing, and I really believe this is going to happen. I don't know, I can't say mark my words, but I really think this is going to happen. They're going to shoot you through an energized door. You're just going to go through an energized door, and you're going to go into some other alternate area. Just like going through a door, there's probably going to be some sort of hidden icon on the door to tell you what it's going to. And then you're going to come out in a different area, different world, realm, part of the park maybe. I don't know what it's going to be. And they're going to have animatronics. They're going to have a whole scene built up. They're going to have something. And then you're going to have to, like, nope, make the U-turn and go right back through the other door. Maybe it's going to be a big trailer where Randall's getting hit by that kid or something like another gator in the house. What? Then maybe it's something like that, right? So he's going to go turn around and go back through one of those energized doors again, and then you'll be right back into the the door storage vault. And that's going to be a really amazing little trick once it's all like finagled and done. I really can't wait to see on this one. Normally, like, Disney does a good line with their stories, you know, it's like, okay, they do this and they do that. It's like, yeah, it all flows together and it matches. But this ride in particular, I'm actually very excited to see what the storyline is on this and how they tie some of that back together. I think that's going to be super fun to watch. So it's got a whole nother loop down here in its own independent little building that's secluded from everything else. You come out and then zoom right back in to the door storage vault. Once you come back in, you come around, you do some more curves, do some nice loops and stuff like that, probably scrubbing off some speed or maybe picking up some speed, kind of like Space Mountain, you know, at the end you just get faster and faster towards the end of the ride. This might be one of those things. Hard to say at this point in time, but eventually you come back towards the end, and it's hard to see right here, but I believe this is it. Kind of a better view here. You come back down around over here and you make this turn out towards the bottom right here. And then you come back and this is pretty much a straight line that's down here. And then a straight bend and a straight line out of the show building, out of the door show building. And so what I feel like this is your deacceleration block right down here to slow down. And then that's going to add another block to it. And then I feel like this is just a transport block down here, just to slow down, and you get in here, and this could be a waiting block, transport block, something like that. But I feel like this is always going to be unoccupied, and this guy is going to be just a waiter. It's just going to be occupied for some reason. And they might have a show scene or something down there. Probably a good way to cover that stuff up would be, again, mirrors. Cover the outside of that area with mirrors. It won't look like it's there until you're inside of it. And then once you come out, here's that area we're talking about right here. You're going to deaccelerate right here, and then that's going to be a block right here with boosters or LSMs or something on it to move the train forward. All depends on which way they want to go. And then this is going to be a holding area right here. Now the size is kind of deceiving. I feel like this little area right here is the unload area, and what I feel like this is going to be best to hold 2 trains right there. Nose to tail, just bring them in. You can bring them in and then stack them right behind each other and get another 2 blocks out of that right there. And then I feel like this little area right here is also going to be a waiting block. So that's another one. We're up to 10 blocks now. Then there's a switch track where the trains can come out here, and I guarantee you could store 1 train there, 1 train there. That's another 2 blocks. And then a left and a right load track. That's another 2 blocks on the left side, 2 blocks on the right side. And then up on top here, I said this was block 1, but it's actually 2 blocks there because you have a left and a right side. Jeez. If I tallied that up and did it right, this would have 17 blocks to it. Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. Let's say I got the internals wrong and there's not a bunch of blocks on the inside. There's only like, I got 2 of them wrong. So we'll cross that out and we'll go back down to like 15 blocks. Okay, 15 blocks. I'll use my average block math. I know a lot of people say, hey, your logic's flawed there because this ride did this and that ride. I understand. It's a 2-to-1 typically on the blocks, right? If you have 2 trains on the track, it means you have 4 blocks. If I have 3 trains on the track, that means I need 6 blocks. So it's 15 divided by 2. What is that? Roughly 7? Okay, so this ride could hold 7 trains. Probably for robustness, I would probably say 8 trains. I'd probably go up in that. Okay, so this ride could hold 8 trains. That's pretty cool. Vekoma's standard trains that they use for these are very nice looking trains, but they hold 20 passengers. They're 10 coaches long, and they hold 2 people per coach. So there's 20 passengers total that can be held on this train. I feel like this is the train that they would use. It's already something that they know they've been using. They're just going to go and put it in there. That's what it is. I really feel the booster wheels are what they're going to use, but again, those little areas where I think where we got extra blocks or maybe some acceleration forward, I think that would be the catalyst they need to upgrade this style into a synchronous style drive. That way you can accelerate the trains just fine, and that would also take care of stopping. You could use speed regulation out on the course, just put it through a little flat spot with some stators sitting there and regulate the speed. I really feel LSM is the way to go, but I kind of feel like they're going to go with booster motors just because that's what's been done. Not sure or not, but all I know is that if they use booster motors and there's plenty of lighting in that show building, booster motors produce a ton of tire rubber dust. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, it does. So much rubber dust all over the floor. So that's going to be hard to keep clean. All right, so this is the last part that I wanted to talk about. It is the first part that I thought of. That's why I didn't want to get too in-depth with it right at the beginning of the video. This is the dispatching process. They've already said at the beginning that they said they wanted to make sure when they lifted a door up and out of the station that they were going to do that with this ride. Really cool. And what we see here is a representation of that. So you see as you come back in from the ride, and again, I'm pretty sure you're going to unload in this area right here. Possibly not. You never know. This could be a small show building right here. And they just have some effects inside there with some animatronics, maybe rounding out the story. And this could be where you load and unload. That would be perfectly fine too. So you come in here. In fact, that would probably make more sense because your throughput would be a lot higher if this was just a show building and not the unload station. Okay. Let me know your thoughts on that one. I think this would be the load and unload point. So you would come back in here, you'd switch off, you'd run 2 trains off to this left side or right side, and then as it comes up here, train 1 would go on to the left side of the track right there, and train 2 would switch and come to the right side of the track right there, and then they would both stop. I feel like it's one of those things that if you're going to load and unload there, you would have to attack people from both sides of the train. You couldn't say, oh, here, move all the way through 2 sets of trains, although Disney's done stuff like that before. But I feel like it would be best to go in and out the same way, which maybe it might be like a train loading station where you have everyone gets into the vehicles from the outside, and then once they come back in, everyone unloads to the inside and then out the center. That would be a good style to do. So that's where you're probably going to load and unload right there. And then once the vehicles are ready to go, you're going to have 2 trains sitting there, a left and a right, ready to go. And then when they're going to dispatch, they're going to get those tracks to lift up to the top. So this representation right here is actually dualed. So they're going to make the track go up to the top and lock into place, and then the trains are going to leave from there. This would be the same thing that they were talking about where we're going to say we're lifting the door up. Imagine a floorless roller coaster with your platform sitting there underneath, where normally on a roller coaster your platform would drop down. Well, imagine these just on a carrier where the platforms maybe because we're Disney, right? We like to spend money on stuff. Trust me, my pocketbook knows they like to spend money on stuff. Maybe we're going to fold the sides of the platform up just a little bit, like the claws coming up and grabbing it. So we're going to fold the sides of the platform up just a little bit, and then the entire carriage assembly, the 2 trains on there, the floor. Why move the floor? In case it stops midway. You have an evacuation platform already. Nothing's changed. It's awesome. So move the entire kit and caboodle all at one shot. The rails will extend into the wall on both sides and probably connect to some sort of massive lifting device. Roller coaster trains that size, they're going to weigh roughly between 8 and 10 tons a piece. So you're figuring, in poundage wise, let's go with 10 tons a piece. So you got 20,000 pounds, then you got 40,000 pounds, add people to it, 44,000 pounds, and then add 2 track and structure backbones to the top. And it's like, whoa, 80, 90, maybe we're talking 100,000 pounds of equipment that has to move up and down quickly. Can it be done? Absolutely. Big hydraulic rams on both sides? Sure. Want to hide those behind the scenes so people don't see them. Maybe some pieces of the track just kind of like, you know, kind of extend off to the side and that's it. But then you take those two trains and you lift them up in one shot. The platform follows it up. It's actually all connected to one piece. You would have door frames spaced through there to make it look like it's some sort of like modified door device that they made just for you to ride on, and it's going to be super cool. And they're going to lift that guy up, and then once it reaches the top, heck, if there's people waiting in the station, there might be. I kind of doubt it though. I have a feeling like this is going to be one of those things, once you load, you don't have people just standing there watching. But I mean, if you wanted to, you can extend faux hydraulics from underneath the thing and make it look like you have the bottom piece raising it up. Heck, for all we know, they're real hydraulics, and you could lift the whole thing up with big hydraulics from underneath. Just keep it level so you don't, because that would be bad. So you take both trains, lift them up at the same time, lock them into place up there, and then drive the train forward one at a time. Again, train number 1 would go right through the switch tracks, right through that switch track and off here. And then as soon as that was past this block, it would go train number 2, would go off that switch track and go forward. And then you can meter the speed of train number 2 to kind of go a little bit slower. That gives time for train number 1 to go down the hallway. And again, my thoughts is accelerate out just a little bit and then go into the course. And then probably, this is why I think that was a block right there. Once you would clear that block and go a little bit past that, that's when this train would start advancing and say, okay, we're gonna go down, and then it does the same thing. So you could keep more trains running smoothly with more blocks because there's more room for a slow train to catch up or for a fast train to catch up to a slow train and vice versa. Depending on the situation, I don't know what it might be. This is going to be a really, really cool ride when it's done. I really can't wait to see what they do with that, because I've been going to Disney for a while and they do things great. I love the show that they put on, although it's kind of going downhill recently. Has anyone else noticed that? Like, I go to parades and they have great parades. They do a good job. And recently they started adding pyrotechnics to the parade. Awesome. Great. But then their nighttime shows started having some trouble. I love Fantasmic. It's one of my favorite shows. Can't see it up there, but I've got a big Fantasmic poster up above there. Like, one of my all-time favorite shows. But recently it's been getting kind of like a little hard to deal with. The other day, I guess Mickey was having a bad day, and like Maleficent came out and Mickey just blew her head off in the middle of the performance. And they had to cut the performance and everyone had to leave just because Mickey was like, I'm done with this, and blew her head off right in the middle of the thing. Could not believe it. So shocking. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I know I kind of squirrel holed all over this video, and I apologize for that, but I had a lot of thoughts on this. There's a lot of cool ideas that could be going in there. I'm not a speculation channel normally, but I mean, this was piquing my interest and trying to research this a little bit just to find some pictures or if they had officially named it or anything like that. I'm sitting there like, this is a really cool thing. How come no one's really talking about it? I guess because it's still in the concept phase. They said we're going to do it, but nothing's really doing it. I mean, the last thing that the people are kind of like, yeah, we did figure it out, is I guess it's going to go where Muppet Vision 3D is, somewhere in that area. That's where the whole land is going to go, which I'm kind of bummed about. I love Muppet Vision 3D. That's one of my favorite things to go do when I'm in Disney World. The fact that I could turn around and see the Swedish Chef operating the projector, that's awesome. I mean, I love stuff like that. And then Stettler or Waldorf, of course. Those guys are awesome. All right. I'm going to call it for this video. I'm Ryan the Ride Mechanic. Like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff downstairs. It does help me out. And no matter what park you're in, no matter what ride it is, remember to stay off the air gates. Bye.